What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing episode here on the Veteran Influencers Podcast. Once again, it's your host, Chris Lamine, and today, as always, we have an amazing guest that took the time out of his day to give back to the community, to give his story, and to, show things that he did to make himself successful. Ladies and gentlemen, Master Sergeant Gavin Reuter. I always jack that up, by the way.
I used to. Retired.
Yeah, retired.
You can tell.
Yeah, just a little bit, You could have a no shave chick, Well, hey, like I said, I appreciate you guys coming on, and this is going to be our second episode here on this season 4, second episode. I know it's been a little bit of a time between seasons, but we're back because it's something that is definitely something that I want to make sure we constantly give the community something to go off of, to hear the stories of those that have lived that life and that continue to live that life. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, we met in Japan, and, you were in maintenance control at the time. And, I know I'm kind of fast forwarding, but we're going to go back to early life. But I just want to kind of go over where we met. We met in Japan. You were in maintenance control. I was in ordnance for a short period of time before going into QA. And, one thing that definitely stood out about you to me is your poise for how you made decisions. I always took note of that. No matter what any of the shops brought to you, I always noticed how you had this pause before a decision. You were never flustered, never frustrated, and you knew exactly how to handle that situation. So, just so you know, that's something I always took from you, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you today. Yeah,
it comes from I started playing chess when I was 15. We can get into that later. I'll explain how that happened. But
no, absolutely, yeah. I try to interview people that have inspired me, or people that I have definitely taken notes from and learned from over the years, and I feel like I've been able to put that into my bag of of leadership and things that can help me become successful as a leader. So I do appreciate that. So let's get started now with the nitty gritty. I want to know about baby Gavin. What was it like?
I want to let you know something. I've always appreciated what you did, especially I know when you started this veteran influencers thing, that was really impressive. But there was something that stood out to me from your end early on when you're doing a lot of your physical fitness videos, especially you started getting more of the calisthenics stuff. And what stood out to me was that you showed a progression. You must have had 1,000 videos that showed you failing how to do, when you were trying to learn how to do handstands and stuff like that. You weren't just here's me doing a handstand. You showed the progression of you going through all those steps, those failures over and over again. It was man, look at this guy, how much work. And that's really cool that you did that. Show, you're not just going to make it on the first, because some people might see that oh, that looks pretty easy. It's right away, but you definitely showed a progression. It was honest, so I've always thought that about you and your channel. So good for you.
No, I appreciate that. And there were definitely a lot of failures. Falling on my face, hurt wrist, sore. I almost quit, and I'll probably go into that at some point in a video. But I was this. It's funny. I was this close to quitting, and I was you know what? And then I think because I rested for a week, and then all my boys were in the gym. We were in Japan, and I was man, I'm just never gonna get it. I do this every day, and then they went up there. They were kind of tipping back and forth. And I just go up there and I hold the straightest handstand. That was my first time doing it. And it's just so random. I was just there for a good almost 2 minutes of just straight, stable. And everybody's there's no way.
Yeah.
Just last week, I was falling on my face and then it just clicked.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was extremely grateful for that. It's kind of hot in here. Forgive the shininess. But like I said, man, I don't know about baby Gavin. You know what I'm saying? I want to know what it was like in McCall, Idaho, somewhere I don't even know. I couldn't even.
Oh yeah,
where it's at.
And my parents had a silver mine at the time. This is gonna be funny how this goes, but my mom divorced from my dad when I was very young. Moved to Oregon, where that's mostly my earliest childhood memories were there. She moved in with her cousin And so that was very, so her cousin had a daughter, which I guess, I don't know, is that their second cousin or once removed or whatever that is.
Right.
That was a good time. My mom started to work, working as a paralegal in Oregon.
Okay.
At the time, I don't know if this is the case now, but at the time, they didn't have stenographers. They don't allow those court recorders. They auto record everything, and so if you wanted a written record of the proceedings, then the lawyer would hand that recording to the paralegal, who would just sit there and listen. That's what my mom did mostly. My youngest memory of her at work, and she was always extremely intelligent and could just parse out her mind. It's so crazy because I could see her. She could type, first off, faster than you can talk. So that's one thing, right? And so she's listening to the audio recording through her headphones and typing that away. But her mind wasn't on the computer. She was looking over here reading a book at the same time, like doing her, right? And I was just like, wow, like that's amazing. Then we moved to Southern California. My mom decided to be a lawyer. And so she went to law school at Southwestern in California, where she met another law student who ended up getting married. So the large chunk of my childhood, I was being raised by two attorneys, which is probably why I'm pretty good at debate and stuff. Like when you're arguing with parents, like could you imagine if they're both lawyers? Good Lord.
You're not winning nothing.
You were never going to win, And yeah, for the most part, as a kid, I was super shy. Super shy.
So did you play any sports at all? Because I mean,
no. Well, yeah, I played basketball for one semester, I think. I was kind of a small guy. I'm still thin, but back then I was same height, 6'1", but man, I was like 98 pounds. I think when I graduated high school, I was 111 pounds. I was underweight for the Marine Corps, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, me, it was music. I joined the band, and I did everything. I played the trombone.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, from elementary school all the way through high school.
Yeah, I would say like having an instrument, I think that's something that's always to me been underrated because I learned how to play the piano a little bit when I was in high school, but the people that were in my class, they were just on a whole new level. They're just like, turn the.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was no way I was able to do that.
Yeah, I guess I'd be, what you might have called just a total nerd in high school, right? So not only was I in the band, but my dad started playing chess with me. This is the next dad. I'm sorry, I left that part out. The two lawyers, that didn't work out. She remarries an architect who I call my dad now. He adopted me when I was 12 years old. Shout out to Dad. And he started playing chess with me. And I got really...
Okay, so he's the reason why you started chess.
It was crazy. He played, at least as far as I can recall, he would play chess with me until I started to beat him, it took a long time. But then, I went and bought books and stuff like Chess for Dummies or How to Beat Your Dad at Chess, like books like that.
Wow.
They were horrible.
Parents hate losing to their kids.
They were horrible. The book, How to Beat Your Dad at Chess, was full of nothing but chess traps, which I found out very quickly. Most traps that you might look up online, little quick gotcha type games, they're far too short-sighted. And if someone's seen it before and knows how to react to it, you actually end up in a disadvantage. So they're good against beginners and stuff, but it's not a long game thing.
Not as professionals,
Yeah, so band and chess team. I was in every band class I could get into. So marching band, the orchestra, and jazz band. And then the chess club and stuff.
Oh man, you must have got all the girls.
All the girls, man. All the ladies. I was over at lunch. I'm playing Magic the Gathering and stuff. Man, you wouldn't believe. Yeah.
Magic the Gathering.
E on the weekends. Total nerd.
So I know you talked about having two lawyers as parents. I think something that is not really spoken about a lot in the veteran community is talking about what is it like to be in a divorced household, because you can look at the single event of the divorce, but I was in the same situation, and prior to that, there's the kid experiences like what it's like to go through the process. It's not always like a clean type thing, and a lot of the time us kids, we we look back and we know what actually happened and we see those certain things. So what was it like? Like, what was your experience being in a household, with parents going through a divorce?
I've heard that too. I think what affected me more was just being an only child. But because I was fairly young when all these divorces. Remember, I didn't really know my actual biological dad. She left him when I was very young. And then married the lawyer, married the architect, and has since divorced and moved back to Oregon. And, so she's on her third marriage or maybe fourth. So I was a little bit young up until the one with my dad now.
Right.
I was 16 or 17, and the topic comes up, that their marriage is not working out. But now I'm kind of the age to make my own choice, whether I'm going to stay with my dad or go back to Oregon with her. And I chose to stay, not only for, because I had all my friends and I was in the middle of high school, but I also had in the back of my mind that maybe she would stay too, because shortly after I was born, she had cervical cancer and had a hysterectomy, so never going to have any more kids. And when she didn't stay, I was very angry at her for a long time, which is probably why I was really not a great kid. Not only because when you're in a household with two attorneys, they're working like 1,000 hours a week. As soon as I was old enough to stay home alone, it was like I was on my own program, bro, and it was not a good one. I would ditch school and not even be afraid of it, because the school would call. It was like an audio recording, informing you that your son or daughter has been marked absent for more than one or
delete.
Yeah, I was never home in time to get that phone call.
Oh.
So yeah, it wasn't. That was not the divorce. I would think there's worse things that made me just not a good person, honestly. Like, I was very misdirected, and I was swung on all kinds of different spectrums. It's kind of an abuse response, right? So some kids will go super bad behavior, right? Because if you act out in a negative way, what these kids are really looking for is attention, right?
Right.
And then that's where I ended up. First I started try to excel and be the overachiever, which is another symptom of like neglect and abuse, because it's the same kind of scream for attention,
Right.
So in the end, it's like I told you before we started, my dad now, he's an Army vet and everything, and he runs his own architectural firm, so he was home all the time and squared me away and put on the right path. So all that ended up, putting me on the right direction.
So so you talked about having parents being lawyers, and also spoke about the divorce, but I know you briefly kind of mentioned the whole the single child, being the only child. Now you got a chance to interact with other kids that had brothers and sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like you were missing out on any of that, or it was?
Absolutely. Especially if you're like me, again, I was really shy, so I didn't really make friends quickly, So I had a handful of friends in the band but I wasn't very outgoing, so I didn't have a ton of friends, and that's challenging. And plus, siblings can help to, challenge and bicker. I mean, it looks like infighting, but it's actually good for your own development. The competition sets you up for the competition you're going to face for the rest of your life. Life is, your entire life is a competition. So being sheltered from that isn't exactly the best. That's why I think it might have set me back a little bit, just because of my own early childhood personality.
Right. And it's, I'm not going to say that it's all the same. I'm sure there's like some type of like analytics that talk about commonalities amongst, in a single child and multiple kids. But I noticed that a lot of individual kids, at least the ones that I grew up with, you're the only child. I noticed that it's kind of hit or miss, because some people talk about it actually, I get all the presents or you get all the attention. And then some people talk about, like what you said, is like, but I get all the attention. Yeah. So there's like two different ways of viewing it, and sometimes attention ain't good attention,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'm glad that I grew up with multiple kids, multiple siblings. Right now my son, he has a sister, it's like his half sister, and he has like in Florida with his mom, he has like a lot of other kids that are in the area. But like with me, he's my only kid.
Oh,
So it's like I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, I'm his person to play with. Like if it's not me, then sometimes I can't always go bring him to go hang out with other kids or something. So
well,
maybe
if you're, somewhat close in age, sometimes your siblings can kind of help you, especially if you have an older sibling. They can kind of keep you on the straight and narrow. Because when I was young, when my mom was in high school or in law school and stuff, I was too young to be at home by myself. So I was raised, she would drop me off at my babysitter's house. She's a really sweet Hispanic woman who babysat probably 10 other kids, you know, and you have that interaction, that socialization. Actually, this reminds me of something Jimmy said on his interview with you. His big brother kind of, well, Jimmy didn't act out or something. Yeah, he said he would behave because he was afraid of his brother.
yeah.
You're not
Catch his
afraid of
hands.
your friends. Okay, whatever works. But because when I started being latchkey kid is what they called it back then. I'd get myself up in the morning because they were already gone, take myself to school, come home, do my homework, fix myself dinner and everything. Yeah.
What'd
So
you eat?
yeah, many times.
Mac and cheese? Hot dogs?
Stouffer's mac and cheese, pop in the microwave. I lived on that stuff and peanut butter and jelly.
Easy day. Oh man,
Yeah.
just some of the things I made as a kid was ridiculous.
It doesn't seem like it in the short term when you might be bumping heads with your siblings, but in the long run, I think for the most part, your brothers and sisters, younger and older, have your best interests at heart.
No, absolutely. So, I mean, going on with the whole siblings thing, but you spoke about having two parents that were constantly working, and I think that best resembles today's economy, where it's almost where two parents are almost, I'm not gonna say required, but it's almost like a must thing that two parents work in order to afford, a full family, depending on how many kids and the type of living that you want. How do you think, looking at how you grew up, how do you relate that to today? And do you feel like how it is today is more detrimental to the family, or do you think that it's something that we just got to adapt to?
Yeah, well, I don't know about today. I think childcare is so expensive. It's almost like you're working just to pay someone else to raise your kid. So that's kind of weird. I don't know. I think it depends on the choices that you've made. It reminds me of like seeing, you walk over to do a barracks tour, and you're walking through some PFC's room, and he just drove up in a brand new Charger he just bought, and he's got a damn 1,000-inch TV in his room, and he's got the best phone in the world, right? I mean, he's PlayStation 5 and an Xbox, but how? Like
Playing them both at the same time too.
I got no money. Like, bro. It's because you maxed out your star card. I don't know what to tell you.
Yo.
Like,
no, that's hilarious.
I mean, for a long time, I'm divorced now, but my ex-wife, she was a stay-at-home mother and stuff. We just have to make the right decisions. I don't like the idea of. I think how do you impart? You want to raise. You have a vision of what your kids or what you want them to be. Hopefully,
right.
Something like you, if you're not like a sociopath or something. But how do you do that when they're being raised by a babysitter all day? You got a couple hours over dinner and the weekends and stuff. So yeah, that's the biggest impact to me.
No, absolutely, and. Without going into too much detail, because, some people are kind of sensitive about this subject, but, I feel like there is kind of been like some fundamentals that we are starting to miss going from different generations. And I know our parents probably thought the same thing about us. And I'm sure it's always been like that. That generation was always more disciplined than the previous generation. It was always more disciplined. Same thing with the Marine Corps, the military. It's like, oh, back in my day, it's like, yeah, you were perfect.
That's totally true, though.
Oh man, so yeah, I'm glad you brought up those points about the importance of like having siblings. I'm not gonna say necessarily the importance of having, but like the benefits of having siblings and kind of the comparison between like a single child or an only child versus having siblings, and then like the detriment of what having two working parents can kind of be on the household, because sometimes it takes the attention away from the kid, and like you said, hey, if ain't nobody watching, what do they call it? The cat's away, the mouse will play, and
Oh, and the cat's away, the mouse will play. Yeah.
yeah, and it's yeah, I mean, I can see it both ways, but whatever works for that family. But I do hope people do take the time to instill those certain characteristics and customs and beliefs that are going to help that person further along the way.
Well,
like
think about this. I mean, we don't. When you get older, it's not like you're, man, I wish I had worked like 50 more hours or something. No, people are always like, man, like you turn around and this infant you were holding one day is walking the next day and is a teenager. You know what I mean? It's like it flies right by and you're like, man, I wish I had spent more time with her when she was little or whatever, right? So make some changes and do that, because that's what people regret later on in life is that's stuff you can't get back.
That's a great point. And like you said, at the end of the day, like what is actually important to you,
Mm-hmm.
And people always talk about, they ask the questions, oh, what would you have done differently if you can go back and what you know now, like what would you do different, or what would you do differently to get to that point that you're at now. And I think a lot of people would pick that.
Mm-hmm.
I would spend more time with a lot of people that you lost, and or spend more time with people that mean something to you, as opposed to what's more important, money or time. Yeah, it's unfortunate some people pick money. You work 100 hours your whole life and then you die alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely something I never want to do.
Right.
So you talk about being a bad child, but then you're like, you know what? Let me go ahead and join the military.
Well,
I had to just throw that in there real
this is
quick.
all because of my dad now, who I chose to stay with him. He was I wouldn't say he was like a harsh disciplinarian, but he did have an Army background. He was an architect in the Army. He was an officer in the Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
And like I said, he was home. It was like a regular 9-to-5 kind of job, right? So my mom, the lawyer, she's home at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. He was home like at the same time every single day, and he didn't let me get away with anything. We actually got into like battles about stuff, right? So again, I was like not the greatest kid. I was not doing homework or whatever, So he would come home, and it's a 3-story condo on the beach. We're on the beach.
Okay.
The garage is like right underneath the kitchen and the TV room, and then there's living room and all that. So I'd be sitting there watching TV. I know he told me to do homework when I got home from school, but I sat my butt down and watched TV instead.
Right.
So back then, his TV anyway. Ever seen those TVs that when you turn them off, they don't go blank right away? There's a little color.
Absolutely. The one where you gotta push the knob into the TV on the side.
I'm starting to age myself a little bit, but so
I got you.
I started. He's gonna be home at 5, so I got to turn off the TV at like 4:50 and make sure the whole thing is off. But he had some suspicion because he would just come in and put his hand on the back of the TV and it was warm. So he cut the plug. Right? Full outlet plug. Clip.
Oh.
But wait, it gets better, because obviously he wants to watch TV when he wants to, right? He rewired it to have like the European type plug, And
the little Y connector.
You know what I'm talking about? It's just a different wall plug,
Right.
The 2 round plugs instead of what we have.
Right.
So he rewired it to have a European plug, so I couldn't plug it in. But when he got home, he had stashed away in his little safe in his room where there were like an adapter, so he could plug it and watch TV. So we'd get in these battles, but I eventually found a way to get into his little safe, And then but after no, I started figuring out important. It's like any hacker might do, right? Important dates, birthdays, stuff like that. There's a 4-digit code. It turned out to be his mom's birthday. So,
Oh
don't
boy.
you all you out there, don't. That's why they tell you not to make those types of dates and stuff your password.
Facts. Somebody gonna figure it out.
Yeah, took me longer to find the safe than it did for me to open it.
Oh yeah. Did you have to start knocking on like the stud in the wall? Just tap, tap.
Yeah, crazy. So him and his dad, well, so my grandfather, he was an engineer for Northrop Grumman. He helped design and a lot of the classic World War II aircraft that you know about.
Wow.
He went to P-51 and then moved on to the Apollo project and stuff. So that's where I started to get my initial kind of love for aviation, because we would go to air shows, and when they fly those old warbirds in, he knew just everything about them because he helped design them. Like, he still had drawings for some of the bombers that and so and to this day, World War II aircraft are still, that whole period. I mean, you understand, we were flying biplanes at the beginning that were, and jets at the end of it, which is just an amazing progression.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's where the aviation stuff came from. And, my dad they were both stubborn. He just kept chipping me away, and suddenly, put me on the right track. So my enlistment story, if that's your next question, because I know you're going to ask, and I think you're going to get a laugh about this, because when I watched the interview with you and Jimmy, I just started cracking up, because it's like, okay, so the recruiting said, I want to join the Air Force because planes, I want to work on aircraft,
Right.
So in the recruiting place, there was an office and 4 cubicles, right? So, like, I don't remember exactly who was in front. I know the Air Force and the Navy were in the back.
Right.
So I walk right by this Marine in his trucks and everything. He's outside smoking. I just walk right by him, go right by to the Air Force, and they have a 1-year waiting list to join.
To join the Air Force?
Yeah. It was October, or it was October. This mid year of 1994. So yeah, I had to wait a year, and I was like, okay, cool. I guess I'm just gonna go to college then. So I walked out, and of course I'm walking out, but right past this Marine. He's like, "They don't have time for you, do they?" or something like that. I remember his first.
That's how they that right there.
No,
that's how they got me.
Like, see, that's the thing. You and Jimmy, we all walked in trying to join some other service, and the Marine was there, like. But man, I was so perceptive. Like, I don't know. I was a skinny, scrawny kid, and I never went to recruiter school, but he read me like a book, right? Because he's just trying to get me over to MEPS and stuff like suck me in, right?
Right.
And he said he's after doing the plates, remember, he had to explains all that. And I'm like, wow, this all sounds pretty cool. I didn't even know that the Marines had aircraft, and that's awesome. Cool. So what's the next step? And he tells me, well, we got to get you down and take the ASVAB, just to see if you'd pass it.
Right.
And I was like, screw you, man. I'm strong. I'm smarter than you. I mean, like, what do you mean if I pass it? I'm going to pass that. I'm going to pass it right now. Let's go. Like, that kind of.
Can I pass this?
Tell me.
Check my scores.
Yeah. So yeah, I almost, I don't know, I think my overall score is like a 98. My GT, everything was almost 140, so I passed
a mere 140.
Yeah. And then when they weighed me in, I was well under the minimum weight. I think my weight for my height minimum was 123, and I was 111 pounds. But then
that's crazy.
Yeah, some first sergeant at MEPS calls me in. He's like, well, you're underweight, but you did really good on your scores here, so we're gonna let you do this. And it'll be, I had to sign all this medical reevaluation stuff.
Right.
Out later was the same paperwork that the diet recruits had to sign, except that was a double wrap. I gained exactly 3 pounds in boot camp, So.
Oh, you must have got smoked constantly.
No,
I mean, you said you were in trouble all the time. I don't know.
Was just not like that, you know. There was a funny thing about so I only had to wait like a month to join the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Delayed entry thing, and I didn't tell my recruiter that I was in the band. You were a DI, right?
Right.
Okay. So I didn't tell him I was in the band or anything because I didn't think it would really apply. I'm trying to be an aviation mechanic, so you know. But in the delayed entry thing, I had this jazz concert. I was the first trombone player on the first chair, and just out of the blue, I was like, "You want to swing by and see us play? I mean, I'm playing this jazz band." He's like, "What? You're in the band?" I was like, "Yeah." You never told me that. I'm like, sorry.
You didn't ask.
And like I've been playing trombone for 9 years by this time, and I was pretty damn good. I was first chair throughout. Like I had 3 solos, a bunch of songs, and the solos are all ad lib. I'm just making it up as I'm going along, kind of thing.
Oh, nice.
So afterwards, he convinces me that I should try out for the Marine Corps band, right? And so I was like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? So I have to do all these things, have you play scales, all sorts of stuff, and read music and everything. And it's the reading music part that is kind of, I look back and chuckle because I was really into playing music. Me and my friends would stay after school or even during lunch to go back and fish out music. And my best friend was the tuba player, and we both enjoyed John Philip Sousa marches. So we would just play.
I might have to look that one up.
Oh.
I'm gonna be honest. Okay, got down. Okay.
I mean, Semper Fidelis. He's a absolutely famous marching composer. He did one called the Liberty Bell March, which I found was pretty challenging because trombone's a slide instrument.
Right.
You don't really usually see a lot of running fast notes with the trombone. And the Liberty Bell March had that, and so I took it as a challenge. I learned it and memorized it. Well, nice. at the rehearsal or I just lost my train of thought. But when it came time to read music for these guys, they put in front of me the Liberty Bell March by John Philip Sousa, and I look at this thing and I'm like, so this is supposed to be. How well do I play a piece of music the first time I see it?
But you already knew it.
And I look at this thing. It's in the same key. It's in the same. Yeah, I know this. I know this song. I don't even have to look at the paper. And this is like one of those like angel devil moments, right? Should I tell them that I already know this? You should give me something else, or
nah. Wait.
So I bust this thing out. It's grade 6 music is like as the composer wrote it. And so to them, I read for the very first time, read this music the first time and played it perfectly. Which in the MOS manual for the band is something that's expected of you as a gunnery sergeant in the nuclear band. So this guy was so stoked. They called me, hey, they want you in the band. They want you in the band. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna stick with aviation. And I didn't find out till I ran into him years later. He's like, you're the guy that screwed me over, because he really needed a band contract, a trombone player, no less. And that one contract would have gotten him 2 or 3, it's like a bonus to find these hard, contracts. And it's like no one ever passes the audition or whatever. It's really tough, And he's like, they had you in there, you were accepted, and then you told me no. You screwed me over. I was like, oh, sorry.
My bad. What do you want me to do?
Sorry, I didn't think playing the trombone for the rest of my life was what was I going to do after,
Right.
I don't know about you. I didn't join the Marine Corps thinking it was going to be a career.
Oh, no. I mean, you know how it goes. It's like, oh no, I'm getting out. No, I'm gonna probably stay. No, man, I'm getting it. You especially in that first enlistment, you kind of go back and forth with it. But
I did get out, so
right. So when you joined, I know you joined for aviation, and your MOS was Powerline. Did you do anything to do with the band while you were actually in though? Like, did people ever call you to play music for any other ceremonies or anything?
No, the only thing that music-wise came along was much later, during my second enlistment, when I started to figure out that I could sing in public. I don't know if you remember that part of me. No,
I remember you singing. I didn't know you actually did that in public, like solo, no music, nothing. You just start hitting notes.
But at first I was really shy. You wouldn't catch me dead singing on a karaoke night or something like that. And it just so happens that I have a tenor type voice, a higher male voice.
Right.
And the trombone is a tenor instrument, so I'm singing in the same key that I hear, my experience, right? And the trombone taught me how to listen, though, right? It's not like a key person on a piano or a valve. You have to slide. You have to kind of listen to where you're going.
Right.
So, and listening is a huge part of singing. So, I used to sing on the flight line. We're out there with like double hearing protection,
and nobody can hear you.
And I'm like, you're singing. So just no one can hear me. Like, who cares? Or out in the fuel pits, So, but there was one day. It was between flights, so the flight line was really quiet, and some pilot had left something in the cockpit. So, hey, we need something to go grab this bag or whatever from the cockpit. So I grabbed my stuff, and initially I look around the flight like I'm alone, so it's okay. So I started singing. At the time, I was huge in the country. I don't remember what song I was singing, but I was singing a country song. Get to the jet, drop the ladder, climb, sing the whole time. Get up, grab his bag, put the ladder up. I turn around, and there's a guy. His name was Arce, Ruben Arce, and he was a corporal in my shop at the time. Okay. Stopped me, super outgoing Hispanic dude, and I turn around, and he's right there. He was doing a turnaround or something on the jet, so he had heard me. I didn't see him because it's like behind the aircraft. He goes, "Reuter, is that you?" Yeah, man. Sorry, gotta go. So I didn't want to even talk about it. A few weeks later, we were on deck, and it was the CAG workup, so it's like Nellis and stuff like that.
Okay.
And we walk into the E Club. This is back when going to the E Club was kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that was definitely the thing to do.
We walk in, it's 9 of us. There's 9, including Ruben. There's 9 Powerline dudes. Walk in, and it's karaoke night. And everyone's talking about. No one. The first person to notice it's karaoke night is Ruben. And this loud man, I'm so loud. He's like, the whole place just. He had a voice that just projected. He's like, "What the?" I don't want to like cuss on your.
Yeah.
What the hell? It's karaoke night. Damn. And he then connects this memory of me. He's like, "Damn, it's karaoke. Hell, do you know who can sing? This guy." And I'm like, "No."
And then everybody's just like hawking it on you, huh?
Oh yeah. What chance do I have? There's 9 Marines. Just like, yeah, okay, I'll sing one song, and that's it. You owe me a shot, kind of thing. I went up on the stage. I sang. I didn't even open my eyes, man. I was so scared. I was knees shaking and stuff. I sang, the very first song I sang in public was The Dance by Garth Brooks. Easiest song I could think of at the time, so that's why I sang it. I was coming off the stage, and this, the DJ, he's like, "Hey, that was awesome. You gonna sing again?" I was like, "Nope." Got to the table, all the Marines were like, that was really good, man. How did, like, give me my shot, cool. Not singing. Yeah. You should do it again. No. And then on the carrier, guys were strumming guitars and stuff. I started singing with them. I ended up joining a country band, did a little show, and it starts to open me up to like slowly but surely like singing in front of people. Right up until my sergeant major saw me singing in this band. We were maybe 2 weeks out from home port. The sergeant major walks in. We're still on the carrier. And he goes, "Hey, Reuter, where's Reuter at?" "Oh, right here, Sergeant Major, what's up?" "Well, I signed you up to sing the national anthem at a Padres game, so you got an audition in 2 weeks, the week after we get home." And I was like, "Wait, what?" I can't sing at a Padres game. That's a lot of people. No. It's an off-season game. There's only going to be like 15,000.
Oh, thanks.
That's so much better. Thanks. So I did that audition and they never called me. So I was like, man, phew, dodge that bullet. At least I thought, because what I did, it was 2 weeks later I got a call. They didn't have me singing at the off-season game. They had me sing the national anthem at Del Mar Racetrack opening race day. Yeah. When the guy called me, I was like, how many people are going to be there up in those stands? The stadium, 500,000. And I was like, good. And then he says, not to mention the millions watching on TV. And I was like, get the hell out of here. Get the hell. I was so nervous, but I felt like I had to do it because,
you got set up.
The major's going to say if I don't, But that, my friend, was the last time I was ever scared to sing in front of people.
Did you kill it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. So I had another week, maybe a month to the actual day of the performance. I sang the national anthem like 500 times a day, every day, because it had to be perfect, And it was. I wish I had a video of it.
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah,
I know you have a recording.
Yeah, no. It was pretty cool.
That's incredible. I mean, that's nerve-wracking. Even just standing on stage with like a few people. Some people can't even speak in front of 5, 10, 30 people, for you to go and do that in front of, because that's permanent, Yeah,
the same type of, this me coming out and like becoming more outgoing and comfortable in front of people. I mean, if you can sing in front of people, you can definitely speak in front of people. And that made me a very good, like doing the maintenance meeting or stuff, that's nothing. You know what I mean? And that's a huge part of being a leader. And you've got to be able to engage people in a group, especially as you go higher in the ranks, So, if you're having trouble, go sing karaoke.
People tell you that, people.
Just picture everyone naked. No, man. Go sing karaoke, because that's really something you don't want to. You want to go sing karaoke, Chris? No?
Yeah, I mean, I've done that a couple of times. I didn't. You hear my voice? It was not pretty whatsoever.
Yeah. I think it's if you do that and you can be okay with it, then speaking in front of people is no problem.
No, absolutely, and I can definitely see from those experiences. I've always noticed that if you have a talent in the military, they're gonna find a way to continuously utilize it, especially if it's gonna make your unit look good. AKA make the sergeant major look good. So I definitely noticed that those things do happen, and you will get utilized for such things. But I see the different experiences that you had as far as playing an instrument and learning a new talent or having your talent come out. But like, what are some of the reasons why you did decide to get out after your first enlistment, and what made you want to come back?
Geez. So you don't exactly get to pick your MOS when you're signing up, right? I was told I was going to be an aviation mechanic. Didn't find out until you go through the school system that you're going to be an F-18 engine dude. But in boot camp, I was screened for an intel. I don't know if you've seen those tests. It's like there's a bunch of there's a Morse code one and a language one, and defense language aptitude battery and all this stuff. And
I lost already. I'm sorry.
Oh, so it's the screening for intel work, And I did good on those tests too, but they still didn't pick me for intel. They made me a chain monkey, because that's all I did on carriers and stuff. That's all Powerline guys did. Walk around aircraft and throw chains everywhere. And it wasn't a job that I particularly liked. So near the end of my enlistment, back then it was only 4 years. Now it's 5, but back then it was only 4. I had come to find out that there was an MOS, small systems computer specialist, and I wanted to move into it. It was critically low on manpower, and Powerline 6017 back then was like at 90-something%.
Okay.
There was 2 things that were fighting against me. The major one was that when I checked in, my first squadron was VMFA 314 on the West Coast in San Diego. When I checked in, there was only 6 people in the shop. I don't know if you remember, Powerline shop had 12, 13, maybe 15 people, right? Yeah. The TO, but they were at 6. And there was an influx. We went from 6 mechs to 15. 2 of the guys that checked in a couple weeks after me, I went to boot camp with. They were open contract. So there was some critical shortage, you know. So 4 years later, all those same dudes are getting out. So the command didn't want to lose me. So I was like, well, you're going to lose me anyway, because if I don't lat move, I'm just going to get out. And maybe they thought I was bluffing. The only person in the chain of command that recommended my lat move request was a sergeant major. He's like, a Marine that's doing something he wants to do is going to be more productive for the Marine Corps as a whole. What he wrote in his comics. But because like my div chief and OIC, everyone like the AMO, maintenance chief, you know, they all said no. Like, I don't know what happened. So I was like, well, then I'm out of here. I had no plan.
I'll do it.
I was like, don't make me.
I will do it.
So I grabbed my training jacket. Back then, everything was on paper, right? Not ASM now, fancy stuff. As you know, went to the San Diego airport and walked in for an interview there and showed him like, look, aircraft firefighting. I can tow aircraft, you know. And the guy hired me on the spot, so I started to work there. It's kind of interesting towing and when you're sitting on a plane and you're being pushed back from the terminal. And it's a tractor as much as huge aircraft and stuff, so it was a lot different in many ways.
Right.
But still kind of boring. And at the time, I was in this relationship with this girl, and when we were like, she was my fiance, and then we had this massive breakup, and I saw her at the bar all the time, where, you know, I was like, I just want to get out of town. I don't know what I want to do. So I'd been working for this place for like 6 months, and one day I just opened up the want ads, and there's an ad for an over-the-road trucking company called CRST. It's, we will pay for your truck driving school if you sign on to drive for us for a year. And I was like, yep, let's do that. So I learned to drive 18-wheelers, and I drove over the road. Yeah, it was. But it let me see the country and stuff, sort of kind of figure things out. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of, you're kind of independent, you know, the company doesn't really care so long as you get places on time. You know?
Right.
And if you're not jamming to music, you sit there and you have all this time to think. It's thoughtful, you know, like, what are you going to do? And you've seen the country, you know? So I did that for 13 months. The last month, I ended up having to run to San Diego. And I didn't have another pickup so I got there on Saturday night or Friday night, something like that. This is the weekend. I didn't have another pickup load until Monday morning. So here it is, the weekend in San Diego. So I contacted a bunch of friends, and immediately it's like, I missed this friendship, these bonds that I had created. And maybe it's because I was currently in a job that was like me sitting in a truck all by myself all day.
Right.
It's like, you can't deny that Marines, especially probably more so than, you know, the other services, I would argue, have a stronger bond with each other because of the it's shared hardship really that brings us close together, you know. And I missed that. And my manager wasn't really that great. And I was like, well, in the Marine Corps, your manager has to take care of you. It's like his job, you know, like not saying that all good or do it, but it's their job description. They're supposed to, you know. So I was like, man, I missed this, you know. So I contacted a prior service recruiter. I'd been out by the time I came back in, it was almost 2 years to like the day. I got out in October. I came in October of 98. I got out. I came back in August of 2000.
See, you know, I noticed a lot of people that join back up, they do it because fear of failure or they are failing. And you obviously were successful in your transition of getting out.
No. You know, starting out the trucking, like I was a lead driver. I was an instructor for the company by this time. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but I was making 75 cents a mile. And that year, that 13 or 14 months, I drove 279,000 miles. So
do the math.
Good job. I mean, it's not exactly a healthy lifestyle. It's kind of sedentary, you know. And it did end up getting boring because after a year or so, I started driving to places like you know how to get to your local Walmart. Well, I can drive to the USF in Boston now because I've been there so many times. You know, so you're seeing the same stretch of road. So
right.
that appeal had slipped away. And because I was never on time with my loads, never on time. I was always early.
Oh, okay.
And so they grade, the companies will grade their drivers. And I was a AAA driver, and this is why I didn't get along with my manager so much, because like freight that had to move quickly, he'd always give it to me when I didn't have a lot of time for any breaks or anything along the way.
Right.
Oh, like they were kind of abusing, and this happens to you, even in the Marine Corps, when you're that go-to guy, right? That's just what's going to happen. It's going to be part of it. But that leads to kind of my theology of how to be successful is if you are one step of it, right? One, grow where you're planted. You're going to come into a job that you might not even fully understand, right? You're going to grab everything you can, and you're going to look around the room and find the smartest guy in the room, whoever that is, and you become that guy's shadow. You're my best friend. Eventually, you'll find yourself that you're the smartest guy in the room. And that, my friend, is when you know you're in the wrong damn room. You got to move on. You got to move on. So that's why, I don't know, you go like, how did you stand out or whatever? And that was it. I was always looking for new challenges. It took me, I never got out of maintenance control. I did a total like almost 16 years in maintenance control. But I was always trying to do that,
Right.
Because it was actually kind of boring to me.
Well,
you're such a great maintenance controller. I mean, I'm not something super special. I've just been doing it literally half my career was in maintenance control. Ask around. No one ever remembers me. Like, I should have been my permanent MLS.
Well, I remember you talking about you liking chess. And, I remember we had numerous conversations and you related your MOS to chess.
So, and that has something to do with it, I think, because maintenance planning or planning anything in general takes a kind of training, you know what I mean? And that's exactly what we're doing in a game of chess. It's not only just evaluating consequences, but it's like spatial recognition, pattern recognition. It's to me, is one of the best games you could possibly play to develop that logical, those types of thinking. But one of the things that I never really got upset about things, even when things didn't go my way. I wasn't really an angry person. One, if you're always angry, you have nowhere to go. When people do actually mess up, like you're always at 10, what are you gonna do? Yell at them even more? Like it doesn't have any impact. When I yelled at a Marine, though, because I'm the guy that never yelled, like some of the guys in Japan, I yelled 3 times in my whole career, and they'll still remember to this day what that was about. I don't remember it, but they do, because they were like, "That guy's, what the hell did you do? How'd you?" But so when I was in the chess team in high school, and I'd gone on this weekend tournament. And there was a game I had played. I was set up to play the first round with a player that was ranked below me by a good margin. So you don't have to know about chess scores, but I should beat this guy fairly easy. But I made a mistake in the game, and I don't know. I dropped a piece. I'm down a whole piece, and it's like, oh my gosh! I instantly start freaking out. Because I'm thinking about the whole damn tournament, how I won in first place, but I lost. I'm losing my first game, and you're like, how did I not see that? You're doing it right.
What piece was it?
I lost one of my knights.
Okay.
Probably if you're gonna lose a piece, that's the one to lose. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have favorites, but
or a pawn. I always see that.
Pawns are pawns. Pieces are pieces. So. Anyway, so I freak out about it the whole damn time. In fact, the next game, I was still thinking about that game and the misstep. So the point is, I was not directing my full attention to the game and the current situation in front of me.
Right.
That mistake happened. Is there something I can do to change that? No. Okay, moving on then. What's the best move it should be? And this is a Monday morning, I had my chess class. And I thought that my chess coach had this class specifically for me, because what he had done was a scenario that happened to me. He was a young chess player, made a mistake in this game, but let's look at this game. Even after losing a piece, he's like, now what's the best move? And as we analyzed it as a class, he was still winning. Still winning. If only he had just swept that aside, because you start to get angry and emotional about these things, and that's going to pull you away from making an objectively good decision when emotions start to get into the way. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah, I mean, I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, that lesson like hit me square in the face, because I went back home and I looked at my game and it was like the same thing. I was not like losing as bad as I thought. And the fact that it had set me up for failure in the next 3 games, really, like the whole weekend I was worried about it, it's crazy. So that moment in my early chess life, I guess you could say, taught me a ton about how to react to when things aren't going your way or tough decisions. There's only 3 possibilities here. Like I said, you hear about chess players thinking multiple moves ahead.
Right.
That's
absolutely.
how I automatically am, because I literally to this day play chess every day. So that's just how I do. And so when you mentioned, like someone would come in with like, you could walk in with like the worst news, and I'm like, okay, yep, let's take the part from this. I'm just in my mind, it's like it's a cost benefit analysis of where this thing, is. You don't have to be pissed at the guy. You know what I mean? Like you're loading a tank and you blow it off by accident or something, and the tank is like, I can get super mad about it, or I can just tell you to go grab a new tank and write out the math on it. I mean, what am I going to do? That's the best move, isn't it?
Right.
Go,
and we have procedures in place. You're probably going to get some training from QA or something. Yeah.
No, that's not the usual response to many leaders, I guess I could say. So I don't know. I would recommend kind of looking at the way that you react personally to situations that aren't going the way that you wanted them to. Because if you can work on that,
that's a great point. I think we can all do that, to be honest. It's they say it's like it's through the times of challenging that you really understand like your character. And a lot of people, it's even like, I like sports, and I like to use sports like find different analogies that you could use for life. And in a sports game, a lot of people, they're high-fiving when they're up 30. Michael Jordan talks about it best. He says, everybody wants to talk crap when they're up 10.
Yeah, right.
I respect the people that talk crap when it's 0-0.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what type of mindset, do you got to have? Do you have that mindset all the time? Or, are you only smiling when things are going your way?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. And like I said, the different ways that I could see, like once you told me you played chess, and then, you kind of tied that into the whole maintenance control thing, I felt like I was always watching you look at the board and just, like you said, just moving pieces.
It's funny, in Japan, the guys gave me the nickname the Oracle. I don't know if you remember that. Because
I think I remember you saying that.
Again, because at the time, I mean, it was like 9 or 10 years of maintenance control, so it wasn't like there wasn't many situations that I hadn't already seen before.
Right.
But what like on like one particular, it was like I'm looking at the board. There's 4 up jets left, and I'm looking at all the discrepancies that all the down jets have. And I got my night crew guy, he's telling me, oh, we'll fix this. So we should have 7, 8. It's like 7 and a P tomorrow. And I'm like, no, you're gonna have 6, a solid 6. That's it. Well, no, this is an easy fix. Okay, well, have a good night. I walk in and there's 6. Like that easy fix. Found out it's actually a wire. They're trying to get it. It's actually, this wire routes through the whole, like, yeah, I knew that because it was, whatever it was. And they're like, how the hell did you know that? I got, this has happened regularly. So that's why they call me the Oracle. just experience,
Yeah, I've noticed that, certain people, like I've always told you, and I'm sure you get told all the time, like I like watching the way you think, and you obviously know you're an extremely smart guy. So, like you said, don't be the smartest guy in the room. So I've always attracted to that aspect of you. but what is something that you have learned from somebody else that's really kind of giving you like an epiphany? Like, holy crap, I never even thought of that.
Wow, that's a good one. I think that Jimmy and I seem to follow each other around the Marine Corps for a while. At the time in Japan, he's the QA chief.
Right.
If you look back and say, we were saying this type of thing before, it was like, what would you go back and change? What could I do to be better? And I always envied his assistance to his Marines and stuff. And the drawback I had in that situation was I never really had a lot of Marines.
Right.
His control had like 4 dudes in it. They're all gunnies or staff. It's not like leadership Marines, but he was always really good at that. And I never had the chance to do that. And I wish I had been more stringent at my request to not be in the shop anymore, because at the time, the main chief, Master Sergeant Nelson, do you remember him?
I do. Yep, Master Sergeant Nelson. Yep.
So he was my control chief in 225.
Okay.
He gets orders to Japan, and he gets promoted to Master Sergeant. I get orders to Japan. So what's he gonna do, right? He's now the main chief, and like, oh, my favorite controller's here. And I'm like, hey, can I go to the shop and lead Marines and stuff? Like, no, I need you in control. Okay. I should have been more, forceful
about it.
Because it happened later. After Japan, I ended up going to Beaufort, and I emailed their maintenance chief when I found out I had orders. But I don't know, maybe it has something to do with me being a gunny too. So rank makes you a little bit more courageous in front of people, maybe. I guess. But I emailed this guy and I'm like, hey, this is me. Now I've got 13 years of maintenance control. So it's like, this is me. I understand if you're gonna put me in maintenance control, that's fine, whatever. And he responds like, no, I don't have any staff and SEALs in the power plants division, so you're gonna be the power plants chief. And I was like, hallelujah.
Yeah.
So, and another aspect of, so not only rank, but once you become retirement eligible, that's another level of freedom, right? To kind of, I'm not saying slip your tax, but you know what I mean? It's like, what are you gonna do? Pay me for the rest of my life? That kind of, I'd say makes you a little bit more courageous. I'm not saying I was flat out untackable, but so I get put in the power plants. Well, 3 weeks later, I know it was less than 3 months, because what happened was maintenance control failed their mouths inspection, horribly. So the maintenance chief comes walking in, I need you to move over to maintenance control. I was like, no. He's like, what do you mean no? I'm like, you're not doing that to me. I told you who I was. I told you I would be fine with maintenance control. You put me in here. At the time, my fitness report is maintenance control.
Right.
I wanted a damn observed fit rep. I was like, I need an observed fit rep. I'm not going. If you put me in maintenance control, I will seriously drop my appendix J papers today. So I wish I was. You know what I mean? I wanted to show that I was capable of doing different jobs.
Right.
Because at the time, I was told that you wanted to show that, especially wanted to climb maintenance leadership levels, master gunnies and stuff at the wings and things like that.
Versatility.
Yeah. So, but I was like, I am right down the hall. I will go and talk to the dude and train him, whatever you need. But leave me in power plants, because seriously, I'm gonna retire.
How did he react to that?
He agreed. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. And,
yeah. Yeah, I'm not going back.
Yeah. So, and then they failed when I went in to talk to that guy, he was, oh no, it was a one-hit thing. That one hit threw off this, and this, and this, and we already fixed everything. We're good. And I was like, okay, well, hey man, I'm right down the hall. If you have any questions about anything, you let me know. And I would check with them occasionally. Nothing. Good to go. Well, then they failed the wing inspection, miserably. So now it's been more than it's been like 6 months now. So I walk into the control chief's office. I'm like, hey, I can get my observed fit rep as the power plants chief. So I think it's time. Yeah, let's put me back in control because something's going on in there. I don't know what it is, you know?
Right.
And he goes, no, I just talked to the guy. He just told me it's a one-hit thing, and you know they fixed it. They're fine now. Everything's fixed. So I was like, okay, all right. So back to the shop I go.
Hey, I offered to help.
Yeah. Oh, and so my last week in Japan was a wing inspection. The wing chief at the time, the all-mat chief, was Master Guns McKinney. I don't know if you remember him. Short, stocky, like super built, black dude.
Right.
And unbeknownst to me, he had moved to the East Coast as the wing maintenance chief. So I go back to the shop because maintenance chief, you said he fixed everything. We're good to go. Like, okay. I walk back in and I'm like, hey man, I'm right down the hall. Need anything? Okay, cool. You're good to go. Well, then we fail the CNAF inspection, and this is 40 days before our combat deployment to Bahrain. And the world like blows up. The world just blows up, and I walk into work. There's a two-star walking by. The Colonel, what's up, Colonel? What the hell? And throughout the day, I was walking into control to go put in some QA and process inspections or something to because I'm an engine mech. It's part of the division. Right. And Master Guns McKinney, the short, stocky picture of this guy, like just huge, right? And he looks around. He's like, "What? How are they failing with you in here?" Because I had zero discrepancies in Japan. So
right?
Like, oh, hey, Master Guns, good to see you again. No, I'm the power plants chief.
Yeah. Here's the guy right here.
That. I don't think another squadron has ever been re-inspected. The wing flew out to Bahrain to re-inspect. That's how bad it was. Yeah, it's crazy. So I wish I would have been more. I don't know, because you can do other things. I'm not saying to like ignore orders or whatever, but what you could do is pick up and call your monitor. You know, It's not a situation where that's ever going to be perfect. You have family considerations or whatever. But at the time, I was single. For most of my time in control, I was not married or anything. So if it's not going your way in your command, well, I guess you can request master or something like that and try and make a case that it's not the best for your career to stay here, because just pigeonholed as a certain, it's not even an MOS, it's just a B build and like a secondary. So looking back, those are the types of things that I would probably have changed. Although it served me in the end, it served me well, because being in maintenance control, much like maybe you probably experienced the same thing. Like you're in your work center, you're familiar with your systems,
right?
But then you go into QA and suddenly you're exposed to all kinds of different. Like, did you ever get your airframes call? Now you're out there rigging surfaces and stuff. That's not something you ever did before as an ordnanceman. So
yeah,
and the same thing applies to control, because now, I didn't know what an ALR was or an ALE was. I'm like, okay, what is that? Like, man, I got a lot to learn. So
no, absolutely. And kind of speaking of certain things. So you said like when you feel like you're overexposed in one area and you want to get exposure in another area, a lot of people, they turn to doing special duty assignments. And one thing talking to you about is actually me being kind of surprised that you made it as far as you did without doing a special duty assignment. So what kind of advice do you have to those that are they're trying to get outside of their comfort zone of something they may have been consistently doing, like their MOS, and either do you suggest that they go special duty assignment to get away from the monotony, or would you recommend kind of like what you did and maybe just going to like another an area like a maintenance control, or going to like a QA or something?
You definitely want to go to those leadership, because that's like middle management kind of thing, first off. Number two, it's going to broaden your education of the aircraft systems in general. Because people, like, if you have this go-to guy, say, in power plants. Do you remember Gunnery Sergeant Wade?
Oh, yeah.
He was, like, the best engine mech. Like, and then we had Gunny Reyes, and he was, like, the best dude, right? Well, not only does the systemically don't want to move those guys.
Facts.
But they don't want to move either sometimes. You mentioned one thing, but here's another one. It is really cool to be the go-to guy that everyone has to depend on. In fact, when you know everything, it's a very comfortable place to be. Which
Right.
is that step I was saying earlier to, when you're the smartest guy in the room, you need to move on, you know? Like right now, I work with the F-18 program, but I got a job offer from F-35 office. I know nothing about F-35s, but I took the job. Moving into something completely new. And that's challenging, and it's going to continuously do that. And next thing you know, who knows what that yields, right? Not only have backgrounds and networks in the F-18 system, but also the F-35, Lockheed, and Boeing. You know all these people, right? Because sometimes it feels very comfortable to sit where you're at because you're the guy that everyone depends on. And,
No, I've seen that a lot. There's been a lot of people that have fought through those, whenever the Hearst and the Hiss list came out. They found every reason in the book, but I remember I volunteered for mine. I put in 3 packages and they just got lost. And I get hit on the Hearst list. Oh yeah, it's sorry. If you were my career plan at the time, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah.
But they kept getting lost, so I ended up back in the day. It used to be called the Hearst list, and I got hit on the Hearst list for recruiting. I'm like, I mean, how many packages do you want me to put in? So they're like, look, I was like 2 weeks away from checking into recruiter school. They're like, look, put in one more package and, we're going to do it. I ended up getting drone instructor, but then it was Paris Island. I was like, no offense to my Paris Island hats, PIDIs, but I didn't want it. So I was like, hey, can I get West Coast? I don't know. We'll see what we can do. Ooh, And then all of a sudden, I think I was like a good week and a half, almost like a week left, and I got my West Coast orders.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to do that. Some people, they don't want to get out, like you said, they don't want to get out of their comfort zone.
I think it comes down to, and this is tough because you're looking at sergeants around that area, maybe newly promoted sergeant. So what I'm going to say is probably not going to be too helpful, but it's necessary, and that is, if you're looking at your career holistically, look at the squadron. Let's say you're in an aviation squadron. You have the maintenance chief, the master sergeant, and you got the sergeant major. Which one of those guys do you want to be? Because it turned out that I was kind of misled. The versatility thing is not a thing. They really didn't care. So long as you ended up in kind of first off, you're getting 90s or better, right? Or
right.
And I'm getting hundreds because because I've done the job for 1,000 years. Because
you're the man. Just say it. Because you're the man.
He used to call me the grand old man of mains control and stuff. He still calls me. So.
I'm no longer wearing the uniform. Beard.
I'll call it whenever. So the versatility thing wasn't a thing. And then the B billet thing turns out to not be a thing. Maybe it used to be, but it doesn't turn out like that anymore. So much for master sergeants, okay? The year I was promoted, only 32% of the selectees for master sergeant that year had fulfilled the B billet. 90-something% for sergeants major, but master guns and master sergeants weren't up there, So if you it's a tough path to do because the Marine Corps is going to try and snatch you out of there, even if you want the job, which kind of sets people back, especially when things change. Like when we do you remember were you around with old blue screen Nokomis?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so you let's say
annually validated.
Yeah. And, you're in that system and you're familiar with it, and you get called up for recruiter duty or something. You come back 3 years later, and everything's changed. You can't even write up a document anymore. So I think it sets people back a little bit. But it's nature of the beast, right? What can you do?
Yeah, they always talk about checking your.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say the master sergeant versus first sergeant I mean, I don't want to piss off any of my first sergeant buddies out there. But, like, because you could go both ways. I think someone told a joke in one of the seminars I was at, like, because, diamonds and stars are for chicks or something. Because we got rifles and bombs, right? But we can flip that around real quick, right? So let's say at the, master sergeant and first sergeant, you just have a Marine that needs to be charged, court-martial is happening or whatever kind of punishment. Will the master sergeant be able to do that job? Yeah, I mean, we have the basic understanding of the UCMJ, all that stuff, and plus there's a manual for it. So yeah, who wants that job? And all the master, like this is at the E8 seminar.
Right.
Let me ask all the master sergeants, do you think you could do his job? And you're like, yeah, hell yeah. Keep your hand up if you want that job. No. And I think it's a better way of putting it, because then it was more like I think it's a real personal decision to go first sergeant so much, because chances are your first sergeant or sergeant major has no idea what you do. Those guys came from maybe a grunt unit or whatever. I've had more sergeants major that have no idea what an F-18 unit even was supposed to look like. You know what I mean?
Right.
So can they do the maintenance chief's job? Probably not, right? But they had a more care for like the developing and leading Marines. You know what I mean? So it's like it comes down to a personal choice. But for me, it was always like, it seemed like in an aviation unit that the maintenance chief had more power than the sergeant major. It was like, so, you can't. The flight schedule rules all, right? Like,
oh yeah.
Maintenance schedule, like, I once had a new check-in. It was like an S3 dude. He had the coolest name. His name is Leatherman, Sergeant Leatherman. If you're out there, man, the guy looked rough. He had like this massive scar on his neck. Like, what the hell? Like, got stabbed in the neck with a bayonet. I don't know, but
with a bayonet.
He came into maintenance control one day, and he just had the list. It was like all my controllers. Oh wait, no, I was still in power line. So I was the day crew supervisor. So I was a corporal, and here's the list of all the Marines going to the rifle range next week, and it's 3/4 of day crew. And I'm like, we can't do this. And he's like, I'm S3, and I guess that's how it works on the ground side. I'm not sure. I've never done it, but you thought I'm the training ops chief. What I say, like, you need to run this by like my div chief or maybe the maintenance chief or something, like.
Right, don't just start throwing names in the pot.
It's different in an aviation unit, because we are individual Marines, aside, keep the air crew aside, we are not the end item.
Right.
In a ground unit, say an infantry unit, every individual Marine is the weapon. In an aviation unit, it's that pilot is the weapon, and we are just facilitators to get those guys trained. That's why all of our ground unit or that stuff kind of falls to the wayside, if you will.
Right.
Did you ever have a rifle range waiver? Hell yeah. Like,
yes.
You ain't going. We have to go to WTI. We're gonna like, what the hell?
They found every reason.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was another part of it, because I wanted to stay in aviation, and I saw the way I felt was like my master sergeant's running the place. So
I mean, obviously, you kind of took your career path toward the mass sound route. But what do you think? Like, what were probably like 2 or 3 things that you felt are something that made you stand out to not only get chosen as a master sergeant, but what helped you to develop what it took to become that?
You see, we were touching on this before you started recording, and people ask me that, and I think, so I don't want to be that guy that's like, old school Marines are better.
Do it.
Here's the difference. I think technology is really the major difference you can look at it in this. Because when I came in this early 90s, 1994, I came in, I didn't have like Facebook on my phone, bro. I had a flip phone. It was like a Motorola thing. I had to type to anybody. Remember, I had to hit the keys like a bunch of times?
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't just the phones stuff we have today set us back. I think, because if you walk into any division or in aviation anyway, here's the difference. When I was a young Marine, when the sergeant, remember I found the smartest guy in the room, which at the time was like my sergeant. He's like, okay, main control, we need to change the left engine on aircraft 205. I was like, can I do that with you? And I raised my hand. And I volunteered for every damn thing that came. I'll change that tire, sure, whatever. Like, tires suck, Other Marines would sit back and wait to be told what to do, right? So,
Right.
And now imagine yourself as the div chief or something writing proficiency conduct marks for these young Marines, and then you have to kind of stack them, right? Like, who am I going to put? Isn't the guy that volunteers going to be the one that kind of stands out to you a little bit, right? Or you walk in and this dude's always in a manual reading it or something, So I think it's there was a lot of Marines like that when I joined, but now I think it's so easy. Most of the shop is sitting there. Seriously, I've seen it a million times. They're sitting there on their phone every minute they can. And if you're that guy that's sitting there reading through your tough, the item now, or you're studying, general aircraft aviation stuff, or reading a NAMP for all I care, so long as it's something to do. And then when some job comes in, you get your butt up and go do it, because that's the only way you're going to become the smartest guy in the room.
Right.
You get in and be exposed to that stuff. And it's not something I see that I saw up until I left the flight line, that it happened a whole lot. And the ones that do, though, that's your Reyes's and your, like Sergeant. There's guys that stand out in your mind. You can say that right now. Like Jimmy Banda stands out to me and you both.
That dude's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. I can't remember some of the other staff NCOs and power plants I ever worked with. Why does he stand out? Well, there's a number of things, but he just was always there, not only for his, his duties, but also his amazing ability to develop and help his Marines,
Yeah, time management is the number of things that he was doing at once, like as far as he was working, he was the QA chief. Oh, he's getting his martial arts belt. Oh, he's doing all these activities with the kids. Oh, he's doing full-time college as well. I'm like, bro, what? Yeah, so I definitely, like I said, I take something from every one of you guys. Like you, Banda, you guys are two people that I'm just looking at. I'm like, bro, like even like me and Warren Officer High, we would always talk about that. Like, bro, how do they do what? He just knows everything. Knows, man. I definitely applaud you guys. You guys have mastered your craft. There's always things to improve on, but when somebody thinks of a position of mastering what you do, there ain't that many people that master so many aspects of what you do. Not just the Marine part, the MOS part as well. So that's definitely flowers that should get dropped for you guys, because it takes work to do that. Some people make it look easy, but man, there's a lot of work that goes into that. So
Jimmy got selected. He's a master sergeant now.
Oh yeah, I'm surprised he ain't like a colonel or something. Now we're just gonna give it to you. He's just
calling me one day like worried. I don't know, man. I was like, shut up. Come on, man. Like it's But then again,
that's his humble side.
I did the same thing. Because someone told me if you don't have a B billet, you're never gonna make it.
Right.
This is not true.
And it's good to dispel those type of things, and you guys are living proof of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I'm not gonna say it's a sad day, because they always say, the Marine Corps is gonna always, move on. They're always gonna find that next guy that can do what you did prior to. And we always think that, the people that we know, oh, no one's better than this person, no one's better than this person. But it's, whenever I see people like you retire, people like Banda retire, to me, you guys are like that person that could do so many different things. And if I was a company, with the Marine Corps, I would never want to lose somebody like that. Because you put them in a position, and it's not like they just do that position. They can do so many things. I mean, think about how many deaths that Ben has been on and covers every MOS. And you're able to do that because he's so experienced in the things that he's able to do. It's as a company, like if I was in charge of a company, I wouldn't want to get rid of you guys. I would find a way to.
like the Renaissance man, and that kind of goes into what I was saying. If you need to reach out and broaden, you're always got to learning something. You know, being in QA is really helpful for that. Control, not so much, but because I didn't do much with like the corrosion control program, or you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
because he was so well rounded on all the other programs, and I was like in mains control forever. I mean, once you have those two shops up and running, it's easy, right? And we were both reasonable people. Sometimes
Right.
there's a conflict between QA and control, which I never really understood because I never acted like the controller that just wants to throw safety out the window so we can fly. And I'm like, I don't know how everyone thinks that way, because I actually have to sign a book that says it's safe. Why would I put my name? You know what I mean? So let's be reasonable. Let's try to get. And so you could ask. It's so funny. We used to set policy, like maintenance level policy, in the smoke pit. Like something would happen, something would come up, and I'd walk. I remember in Japan, you know, the smoking area was like down the hall. From control, I'd walk past QA. So I would grab him like, smoke fellow? And we'd go out there and hash it out. And we wouldn't leave until we had an answer. And usually it was pretty reasonable and a compromise. Like, that sounds good. And we go back in and make it happen. So be reasonable, you know? Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, because I always tell people, like, we're on the same team. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't have 5 Michael Jordans on the same team. It's not going to work. You got to have, you know, other key players that are going to help make the team whole. You know, we're all going toward the same cause. Let's just figure out how we can get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, and understanding people helps out. I did some classes on like human behavior and process of, like, not just interested me. Human behavior mostly, biases and stuff like that.
Right.
But I also had the assistance of like my childhood, learning how to argue a little bit, you know.
Right. With the lawyers.
Yeah. Like if you hit someone with some major question that, you know, can you go and work in UMA on a jet that's in flight? And most of the Marine Corps today would tell you no. And of course they're going to say that because you're hitting with your whole idea up front, right? What if I get you to agree to a couple other pieces first? Like, is looking through, because now we have smart aircraft reporting everything, right?
Right. Is
looking through that mountain of data, trying to figure out what a gripe is that in work? Oh yeah, if you're looking at that, especially if the work package says to do it, right? You would agree with that?
Right.
Well then, can I do that while they're just flying? And now suddenly you agree that I'm trying to simplify the argument I had with my wing inspector, but that's the type of thing.
See, that's where the chess comes in right there.
No, it's called the foot in the door technique. You're going to learn that more in recruiter school stuff. You get people to agree to little things, just like my recruiter did to me. He got me to agree to go take the test or whatever. And whatever method, doesn't really matter how he did it, but he got me there. And then once I was there, well, why don't you just weigh in? I mean, we're here. You're like, right, oh, sure. And why don't you just do this? I mean, you don't have to come back, right? Because I had to drive to LA. It was like an hour and a half drive or whatever. I mean, why don't you got to knock out your physical too? You know, just in case. I don't know if you're gonna make it because of
right. You might not be good.
I'm agreeing to all this, and then you've agreed to all this stuff. There's actual human behavior studies on this. It's really interesting. But then when it comes to time, let's sign the contract. You're like, well, I did all this already. You know what I mean? That's the idea. So be a little bit more. I don't know. If you can get people to agree with the smaller portions of your idea, it's easier to sell the big one. But that's not how most people present their arguments, is it?
They start from here and then they try to work their way down instead of start from here and try to work their way up.
Those classes. It started out in human factors and aviation mishaps. Was an interest of mine. I studied that as part of my private and instrument license. I got the pilot's license, and that the studies that we did, the behaviors there, many of them, mistakes in maintenance performed because of some kind of human error, and how to counter those things, And when I started looking at that, I was like, how interesting that people's brains do that. And they're like, how do you even develop memories, or what is a bias and why does it exist? There's tons of different types of bias, and once you can, that probably served me really well when it comes to speaking with higher ranking officers or staff. Like, you understand how people's minds, generally speaking, how their minds work, so you can kind of use that to your advantage. I'm not like hypnosis, but
right,
Jedi mind trick stuff,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, even then, I try to take a situation and try to look from the outside and go, okay, if this person was looking at what I'm doing, what kind of things would they pick apart on it?
Sure.
What angles would they take for this particular situation, and try to think a little bit outside of my own spectrum?
You just described reverse debate.
There you go, people. I just reverse debated.
It's like if you were trying to get ready for this type of argument. Well, what's a good one today? Oh, pro-choice, pro-life, pro-choice. I don't care what you are. Let's say you happen to be pro-life. And then you're trying to get your argument set up in a way, right? Well, now pretend for a moment that you're pro-choice and rip up your own arguments, right? And that's going to require you to do a bunch of research into the other side of the argument, right? And you can literally do this with anything, especially when it comes to different interpretations of the same chapter in the NAMP or something, right? Like, how are they reading it? How can I prove that's not it? It's like, wait, you missed a comma here? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Read the next sentence, bro.
I mean, that's a great point, though. It's just trying to counter what somebody could say, and then try to create I guess, another counter for that. Maybe find something that they're not going to be able to counter.
Right.
No, absolutely. So I want to ask you something, which is it's kind of going back toward the beginning, and I don't think you answered it, and I don't know how much of a sensitive question this is, so we could always X this out of it. But you talked about early on that your real dad and your mom, they split while you were young, so you didn't really get an opportunity to experience mom and real dad in a relationship living in the house. At any point, did you ever seek out your biological father, or were you ever able to see him?
That's a really good question. Wow. Yeah, I did come to that point. I was in high school. This is such a crazy story. I don't know how long you got, but I'll try and make it short.
Yeah.
In my senior year, or the summer between my junior and senior year, I got a job at a place in Hermosa Beach called Bodacious Buns. It was my very first job. A cinnamon bun place. So I spent all day making cinnamon buns. For the most part, the people that worked there were my age, young kids, because we did coffee and stuff too, like espressos and cappuccinos, right? Served sandwiches during lunch and all that. And there was this one older lady that worked there. She had to be in her 60s, just to stand out. It stood out to me, but she was super nice. And there was one day where we were in the back doing dishes, and she just asked me questions like you are about my early childhood and life. And there was one moment, I don't remember exactly what I said or when. I was like, then we moved to, so that she could go to law school and be a lawyer. She was started out as I was telling her how she was a paralegal in Grants Pass, and then moved and went to Southwestern. And she dropped the dish in the sink, and she turns to me and goes, You're that Gavin? And I'm like,
Stop.
What are you talking about? They worked together as paralegals in Oregon, and she was very good friends back then with my mom when they were both paralegals in Oregon. I just happened to have this job at Bodacious Buns that pushed me into this relationship with her. And so I was like, wow, did you ever know my dad? I mean, how far do you guys go back? Oh yeah, no, I remember their silver mines out. I was like, that's how I found out I never asked my mom what she was doing. I found out from this older lady at Bodacious Buns that they were running a silver mine and stuff. It's kind of weird. It's a lawyer. I don't. Okay, like so. I had never seen him before that I could remember. So I asked her to bring in pictures and stuff, and yeah, the typical '70s, like the old pictures are horrible. My mom's got like long, blonde, straight hair down to her butt. '70s hairdos all over the place. People wearing bell bottoms and everything. And so at this moment is the first time the next day she came to work, is the pictures, and she's like, there he is, that's her dad. And now I thought, well, I should reach out. But I fought for a long time on like, what the heck am I going to tell this guy? So I brought it up to my mom, and she was like, yeah, he moved on. He obviously remarried and has 3 sons. And I'm like, damn, I have 3 basically half brothers, right? Isn't that how parent? And, but it'd been, 16, 17 years or whatever. I'm like, what do you say to the guy? I'm trying to figure it out. And then kind of like, I joined the Marine Corps, and so time passes. By the time I go, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to say, but screw it. Let me find out. And he had passed away. So I missed the, yeah, don't waste, right? We're talking about, those things are you going to look back and regret that you didn't work harder, or are you going to look back and regret those experiences or, situations with people, those relationships? So those are the things you're going to miss out on, right? So it's probably, yeah.
That's definitely like a part of a story. I mean, that's crazy how it kind of ties into what we were talking about before, because that's a living example of don't waste time, or not necessarily don't waste time, but as early as you can in life, try to figure out what things are going to be important to you, because we do waste a lot of time on things that aren't.
Absolutely.
Man, that's incredible.
It seemed that they were really important at the time, but
absolutely. People, family, and creating memories and long-lasting memories. What type of impact do you want to have on this world, on the people around you?
Yeah, sure.
And hey, you left enough of an impact on me. I mean, I was in ordnance, I was in QA, I went to Corpus course, and in that time, I mean, shoot, I got to Japan in 2014, and here it is, 2022, and I wanted to interview you because you did leave an impact. I still remember you of who you were in maintenance control, the man. And
I appreciate that.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure you're doing the same thing right now. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you're finding some ways to give back to yourself, because you gave a lot to the Marine Corps and you gave a lot to the Marines as well.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to leave with the people?
No, I mean, we felt like we covered so much, and just, shout out to Dad. He just turned 77, I think, 2 days ago. So
nice. Well, happy birthday, Pops.
And I talked to him all the time now. Well, he's having some heart issues, man, too. And it's like, damn. When I was stationed in San Diego, it was 2 hours away, but I didn't go visit him much. And damn, even when I was in Japan or here or there, we didn't really talk all that much. And now we're talking a whole lot more. He's doing great. They just put in stents or whatever. I don't even. He's doing fine. Feels great now. But I'm calling him all the time now, for sure. And it's one of those things you feel like you have plenty of time left.
Right.
So, if you have something to say to your parents or loved ones, just say it now, for sure.
Absolutely. Better late than never, people.
Yeah.
Well, hey, like I said, it took us a couple tries, couple different days to get onto this interview, but I feel like every interview that I've done is they're equally important, and I always try to find what differentiates each interview. I'll let the audience do it, because I don't want to dictate what they get from it. But this is definitely an important interview to me, and I definitely appreciate it, and I like just like how you said, you like to do things outside of your comfort zone. I started this because I was very uncomfortable talking. I spent months after I got a camera. I didn't know what to say. I sat there, and here I am putting myself in front of people. What's that?
I said you definitely overcame that.
This is my karaoke. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, I definitely we'll definitely talk offline because I got a couple other things that I'm working on. I would love to have you a part of.
Sweet.
But it's definitely been a pleasure, and I appreciate everybody that does watch this interview. And whenever it does come out on YouTube, you guys let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of it. Any type of questions that you want to ask Gavin. And as of last year, he's retired master, and so I definitely appreciate all the knowledge that he put out there. This is probably one of my quietest interviews I've done because I was just soaking in all the information that you were giving and just watching how you were telling the story. So
cool, man. Yeah, reach out anytime.
Absolutely. I'll definitely hit you up on the side.
Sweet.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.